We really still remember the time when we started talking about Mass Effect. It was after we'd done Knights of the Old Republic, and after, that was such a Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was such a tremendous success, and there was a lot of passion that went into that game and a lot of really great ideas. And we were sitting, Ray and I were actually chatting a lot with Casey in those days, and we were sort of thinking about, okay, what's next? What's the next thing to tackle? And I think what we really want to do was to blow it out, to really make it big and broad. And that's kind of where this whole concept of exploring the galaxy and having a really giant story. And we wanted to do something of our own. I think that was the other thing that really came out. And it was funny, we were at this, I think one of the first meetings was at this Greek restaurant by our old office. I still remember us talking about it and throwing the ideas around. So it was a really, it's always exciting when a game is starting, because it's pretty general, but there's usually some really neat ideas that still, to this very day, have kind of lived through all that time or in the game itself.
A lot of the inspiration for Mass Effect came from the idea that I think in a lot of the science fiction that we're seeing today in movies or games is a lot of it is really dark and gritty, and you'll have lots of rusted metal and dark shadows and things like that. And that stuff is really cool. But we also wanted to do something different. And when we thought about what's different from those things that are being done, one of the things that came to mind is for myself and the art director, Derek Watts, there is kind of an entire genre of art, like kind of futurist art, that was especially done in the early 80s and late 70s, where things are they're just extra sleek. They kind of have a graphic design sense, or even like an aerospace design sense to them. They look like they're drawn with a compass and a ruler, and you get these very functional but very sleek looking designs. And so that was something that we wanted to impart to Mass Effect.
At the beginning, Casey and I really sat down, talked a lot about what kind of movies we liked, what kind of artists we liked. Sid Mead popped up. Some of the other movies we liked were Solaris, Nick Clean style and that. Red Planet, a lot of the other Hollywood things like that. We had just come off a Star Wars game, so we had to kind of get our minds off that kind of look, like the Imperial look, the Republic look, and we had to go in a totally new direction for that. That was a bit difficult. So we looked at a lot of the old NASA paintings of what the future might look like, some of the old ships of what might it look like to go in outer space, some of the ring worlds they had done, and so on. Structures, we looked at a lot of modern architecture magazines, maybe just took them to an extreme scale, but we definitely had the same vision that we wanted on this, and that was a clean look, nice and sleek, something that wasn't too clunky, something that could actually work, and people would feel comfortable with driving around in, walking through, or being a part of.
So there was a year of nothing but, what is our IP? What are we trying to make here? Going back and saying, well, what kind of a science fiction game do we want to make? We decided right away that we're going to go to a real-time combat system, but really focus on making sure that the RPG aspects of that combat were still there. Meaning, as I progress through the game, I'm getting better, I'm able to upgrade my character, my gameplay is evolving as I move through the game, but it's all done in real time. One of the big problems on KOTOR is melee and the sort of blaster weapons were always fighting. Like we couldn't resolve the balance on those issues very well. So we made the decision, we're going to use ranged weapons for this game. And actually that decision has made it much easier to design, and it's made it more fun. Because everything going into it with the tech powers, the biotic powers, the mass accelerator weapons, all those things are ranged so that everything sort of builds off that philosophy. The interactive conversation system, the biggest thing we were trying to go for in this game, basically we do have like a real-time conversation, and that's really the key, is that it's a real-time conversation that you're inputting into, and in certain circumstances, the end result of that is digital acting, like we saw at E3, where you grab someone or you pull a gun. So you'll see like that payoff when you do like the traditional BioWare intimidate and charm. Well, when you intimidate somebody in this game, the payoff will be something physical as well as something verbal. Just like KOTOR, we wanted to say we want science fiction moments that you'll recognize, but they're redone in such a way that they're new. That was sort of the challenge for the first year, is making sure that the framework was in place. We didn't even worry about the story so much. We worried about what is the framework where we can tell a good science fiction story And after we're done telling this story, we have a lot more stories we can tell.
The big thing that we want to try to do is give the feeling of an epic 80s sci-fi. So the music really has to reflect that. And what we found in the 80s, the soundtracks we liked best were things like Tangerine Dream, Vangelis Blade Runner, you know, the Jerry Goldsmith on Alien. So what we're trying to do is make a combination of that stuff. You know, the Goldsmith orchestral, the mild stuff, mixed with the eclectic electronica, but very very serene and very, a lot of ambience in the music. Right now we're blurring the lines between what's a sound effect and what's music, because the music itself is quite the sound effect. So it's got, if you listen to a movie like Blade Runner, the music in it is all part of the world too, and it just all blends together, and it just makes the whole, the whole audio package complete.
I was lucky enough to have played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. I was, the stereotypical geek in his basement with his friends, which gave me a real understanding of role-playing games and how the experience of role-playing takes place, how to tell a story while you are allowing people to make choices and go along the way, changing things. It's not a linear style of storytelling. That's very much what we do here at BioWare. So that kind of gave me the grounding in the understanding of our story structure.
So in terms of inspiration, I think, as Greg described, we've had a desire for a long time to make a new IP at BioWare that's going to really excite the fans in a science fiction environment. And so this is that IP. Mass Effect is what we've been striving for. And I think what we're trying to do in terms of the emotion in the player we're trying to convey is we're trying to make players feel inspired. The new generation of video game players, the new generation of people who enjoy role-playing games or story-based games, we're trying to inspire them the same way that we were inspired back in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 90s when we played RPGs, just as ourselves. We're big fans of these games ourselves. So I think it's our dream ultimately to create that kind of same feeling and instill that emotion and inspire a new generation of video game players.
I think you just revealed how old we actually are.
Well, we finished Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic around mid-2003, and then we did the PC version, but through the last half of 2003 we were starting to really think about what we wanted to do next. And in general, we wanted to take what we had done with Knights of the Old Republic, which was a huge space adventure. You go to a lot of different planets, and it's in the Star Wars universe, so you've got just a good basis for adventure and combat and things like that. And we wanted to take the formula that we brought to that kind of role-playing game experience, where you can create a character, be who you want to be, and really develop that character over the course of a game, and take that into a new universe where there was really no limits on what you could do as a character and what we could do with a story. And so that meant basically coming up with our own intellectual property, our own galaxy universe of new spaceships and new powers and things like that. Just a really a fresh look at how to do a space adventure. The origins of the story for Mass Effect really come from the principles of the world that we wanted to create. And actually, when you think about issues like, should you have time travel? Should you be able to warp somewhere? Is there cloning? Is there artificial intelligence that, there are robots that are as smart as we are? Those kinds of things actually dictate the things that you can do in the story, because if you can do time travel, or even if you can warp across the battlefield, that radically changes everything about your story, the way the game plays, everything. So we had to kind of lock those things down first before we started building our story. And then the story itself came from, again, the larger ideals of what kind of moments do you want to have and what do you want to be able to do. So we wanted the player to be able to have their own ship, just because it's a great way to feel empowered and be able to get around the galaxy. We also wanted it to be a ship that wasn't just a vehicle that you hopped into. We wanted it to feel kind of more important. And so it's an actual military vessel that has a crew, and as you do different things on missions and all across the game, your crew actually responds to you, and you can go up and talk to them. You can walk around inside the ship, and you can decide where you want to go. And so it's these kinds of things that kind of started contributing to what the basic structure of the story was.
When we write something at BioWare, there's usually 3-4 writers on any given time working together on a project. maybe 6, 7 writers across the whole life of the project. We also take input from all the other people on the project. You know, the artists help you understand what the vision of the game is going to be. The programmers give you an understanding of what the gameplay is going to be. Your character artists show you the characters you're writing for. You see them coming to life. The animators make them real. And everybody has an understanding of what we want the final product to be.
When we're designing characters, there's input from everywhere. Beginning with story, the writers are going to write. We need to know who's in the world and what they're doing, where everyone's going, what their motivation is. That's absolutely essential when it comes to character design. If you don't have a story, there's no point in drawing. They say a picture says 1,000 words, but yeah, it says way more than that. I've tried writing 1,000 words, and I usually end up scribbling notes on the side anyway, scribbling designs and drawings.
To me, storytelling is the most important aspect. If you haven't told your story right, and you've ended up wasting the whole audience's time. Really, it's about taking people to places they haven't been before.
Well, one of the first steps we do is we usually start just looking through a lot of photographs, find stuff that is actually on Earth that is interesting, start painting concepts around there. We'll do a couple of planet ideas, maybe 5 to 15 to 20. Maybe do a rocky environment, maybe garbage planet, anything like that. I mean, just throw it out there. Let the writers start to look at some of these ideas. Let them pick and choose about ones they can really work with. One of the areas we did was Virmar, which was kind of based on some islands in Vietnam and Thailand. We really worked with that with these kind of clean pads that kind of connected them all together. You could walk through. Originally, the concept started out as this utopian a vacation world that was very clean. You'd want to go to. Eventually it was turned into an evil base, but we had to do some adjustments on that one.
To create an environment, we start with the concept that Derek Watts creates, and we work with the designers to rough in a block level of the set to make sure it fits the needs of all the design and story requirements for the area. So we build a lot of the stuff the same way we did in our past generation games. We still construct them in Studio Max. We pull them into or display them with our engine. There's just a lot less restrictions on things for this generation. We can have a lot more polys, a lot more textures, higher texture resolutions. It all holds up a lot better than it did, and the artists are free to make it look exactly like what they wanted. From there we move on and we start applying textures and lighting and everything else to refine it and make sure it's believable. Lighting, especially in Mass Effect, is incredibly important. It's one of our big focuses. After everything is looking and acting correctly in our game, and the designers are comfortable with how things are working, we spend a lot of time on trying to get the lighting just right, making sure that the colors are controlled and that they hold up well, that they match our style and our art direction.
Mass Effect is actually structured in a way that allows us to, not only have, sequels that extend the main story in ways that we've actually planned out ahead of time, but it also has the basis for a larger galaxy outside the core story that's constantly expanding. So we do this through what we call uncharted worlds. And so in the game, you actually have a starship. You can go to the galaxy map in the center of the ship, and you can actually look at the galaxy, look down on it, look at all the different star clusters and kind of explore planets and asteroids and things. And then you can actually go to these places.
We add creatures, we add things like bases or maybe lost satellites or something that you would want to, that whatever it is that you saw in orbit that beckoned you to come to and explore this place. And that's some sort of anomaly. You could be set up for an ambush by some other race in the game. There could be minerals there to explore and recover. These are basically unclaimed planets, so there could be new creatures nowhere else in the game. Those are the sorts of things you'd encounter on an uncharted world.
If you were actually able to have your ideal adventure in space, what would you want to do? Have your own starship, have some kind of superhuman abilities, be put in a position where you as a character are somehow empowered, even beyond where you can grow in a normal RPG, but even that your starting point puts you in a position where the kinds of things you're dealing with are really epic. And so those are some of the principles that helped us form the basis for what the intellectual property would be, what the universe would be.
We get the concept artist started quite early on characters. We give them a rough idea of what we want, some people to try and think of, medics, marines, armors, ambient characters. So Matt Rhodes did these. These were some sketches he did to get an early idea of what we wanted. It's a futuristic look, but still clean and stylish. He'll look through fashion magazines and so on. We kind of wanted to get these arcs in there on the clothing. He was playing around a bit with that. The clothing is quite tight. These are maybe some ideas of formal wear for the humans. This is a quick early drawing of maybe what an Asari head looks like.
Character design for Mass Effect was great. It really was wish fulfillment in that we were able to design a whole, well, plethora, for lack of a better word, of just new aliens, new species that we could really just play at and have our own fun with. There were the humans. And the idea behind designing the human race in this game was that it wasn't that far in the future, far enough that it was something new, but not so far that it was unrecognizable, that it was alien to us. Having the chance to design new aliens in particular, there were aliens like the Solarians, for example. The Solarians were actually one of the easiest to design, in a way. Some of the first drawings kind of seemed to hit it fairly close, and it was just a matter of sort of finesse, just back and forth, trying to find out where do we relax, or where is it, what are we trying to say with these guys? In some ways, we based them a little bit on, at least from a design point, a little bit of the Japanese sort of poet warrior persona. The Krogans are badasses. They're the warriors, they're the guys who are running through the galaxy, pushing everyone around. Intimidating, everything in there, even their physiology says, we are gonna kick your ass. The Asari were the most fun to design, by far. To get a design brief that basically says, design blue-skinned space babes with no men, it's like, all right, good, can do. A lot of the inspiration from the Asari came from, especially in costumes, came from sports gear. There was a lot of scuba gear and climbing gear, and a lot of stuff that was really pliable, really flexible. It was every nerd's design dream. The Turians would be the warlords. They're the guys who are probably, when humans show up, they're the best of the best. They're the ones who are the scariest and the most together. Like a mix between the Krogan and Solarian in a way, but just pointier. The design of the Geth was probably one of the longest character designs that we dealt with. He was on the table the longest. It started out not even as a machine very early on. They weren't a machine race, and this was before a story sort of was written about them. But there was one sketch in particular that ended up that people latched onto. Did a drawing of a guy with almost with no skin, but like Bishop from Aliens with his like white plastic insides, but basically just a muscle chart clinging to the walls in this creepy spider pose. People just kept coming back to that and saying like, can we have this? Can we have this in the game? And slowly but surely, as time went along, we thought, well, this living creature Geth isn't really working out that well. It might maybe machines, that might actually serve a bit better. And that's when the design process really started going. The original design for the Geth was based kind of on a human, the white plastic muscle one. But eventually we started to twist him and push around and try to get a few more of those alien features, some of that stuff that really sets you off and makes you really uncomfortable. So we got rid of the head, gave him the big sort of hood tube over his face, and it just gave him some of that anatomy that just makes you a little unsettling. But the one thing we knew we ended up having to keep was especially the musculature. Something that seems very much like he's been skinned and that he's not cozy at all. He's not enjoying his life. The Geth in particular were great to design. It was fun to design, but after the end of it, none of us wanted to see them again.
Here I've just got a Geth trooper that I'm working on. We're just basically setting up some level of detail meshes. You can also notice in here the green and blue is the character rig that the animators will use to pose the character.
This guy is approximately 5 million polygons, and so there's a lot of surface detail, and you can see all the wrinkles and folds and anatomical elements and all the intricacies behind the modeling there that gets brought into the game and gives the models the great surface treatment, the way with the light, how it plays over the surface. In previous generations, we were looking at poly counts of maybe 1,000, 2,000 polygons for the heads. So there's a tremendous difference between what the Xbox 360 is capable of compared to the previous generation.
One of the guys that actually wrote the story is our music map maker. Okay, so along with the levels and what's going on in the levels, we have a music map that will define changes in music as the story changes. Certain story moments are going to have very critical music that you'll only hear in that point in the story. And then other times we'll take the general level music that you typically hear while you're just exploring the world. It's going to be extended in a way that the music will sound different even if you decide to come back. The music will sound familiar, but it'll be different. Back in the days before we had all this digital technology, the guys only had tape. They had tape decks, and the only thing they could really do is a little bit of pitch here and there, manipulate the tape deck, slow it down, speed it up, and so they had to be really creative in how they actually recorded those sounds. So a lot of the things that somebody like Ben Burt would do is he would go out in the field. I'm sure everybody's seen the videos of him tapping the tension wires to make the laser zap sounds. And the one thing that I found the most fascinating, the way that he got a lot of the ship sounds was he went to the Los Angeles freeway, pointed a vacuum cleaner tube at the freeway, stuck his mic in the vacuum cleaner tube, and then all of a sudden the sound got really focused and it had this pitch to it because much like a flute, a vacuum cleaner tube, the pitch is defined by the length of the tube. So he was trying different pitches till he got the sound he wanted. Then once it's on tape, he could manipulate it and speed it up, slow it down, and that's how he got a lot of the ship sounds, just by getting freeway noises modified at the source. And so that's the type of thing we're trying to do, is go out and record our ambiences, but modify them at the source, that when we're not doing a lot of digital post-processing, a lot of times it's all about happy accidents. You in your mind you'll say, okay, well, I think the sound will come out like this. But until you try it, and it's like, wait a second, that's really neat, that's really unusual, that sound there, and then you can manipulate a little bit digitally and get it into the game. One thing that we found is that in the national parks, there's I don't know if people, if they have them everywhere, but I know in our national parks in Alberta, we have bear-proof garbage cans. Okay, so what they are is these garbage cans, the lid lifts up, and it's got a hinge on it, and then there's a little latch that locks so that bears can't get in and steal the garbage. And so those are everywhere in our national parks. And basically, but those garbage cans are quite big, and they've got these big, rackety, rusty hinges because they're outside all the time. And so we found this one that we were just goofing around, stuck microphones in it. We're, lifting the lid, and it's making all these groaning and moaning noises. And then after we're just like, oh, whatever, it sounds okay. And then we bring it back. We pitched it down about an octave, added a little bit of reverb to it, and all of a sudden, wait a sec, that sounds like the inside of some, alien vessel, and it's just all these groaning and moanings and stuff, and actually what that turned into be is actually going to be the sovereign sound. So it's that's probably, I would say, the single most defining sound is that one particular sound. It's in the trailers, so I mean it's been floating around a bit, but that is the sound of sovereign, and what it is just a garbage can lid. Here we go. So we got the before and after. So basically, the before was just, well, it's just this. It's, a garbage can lid being manipulated. And then the after turned into that, which is our money sound. That's probably I guess that would be the single proudest sound in the game, because it was a happy accident. And that's really just a garbage can lid pitched down an octave with a little bit of reverb on it to liven it up.
We really kind of have three portions to the design department. There's the writers who do all the story. There's the cinematic designers, which mostly make our dialogues and some of our cutscenes very, very cinematic. They're responsible for making that look. And then everything else, all the collection together, is what the tech designers do. We take all the resources from every other department, and we script all the combats and script everything together.
We do most of our work in Kismet, which is a visual scripting language. Sometimes it can get kind of crazy, a little complex. Like, for example, this is the innards of this action station that I'm talking about, which is kind of where the intelligence is for what kind of twitches. There's a lot of logic flowing through all these and saying what twitches the guy might do when he's in this station.
We have three different classes three different types of combat classes that all deploy different powers and abilities, and it's how all that stuff comes together into a combination that we're hoping really creates a lot of really cool, fun gameplay for the player.
The animators, they have mocap for all of their scenes, and they tend to spend a lot of time on the very key scenes that that take a lot of work. And what we do is we actually work with the existing animations that we have and try to basically, through camera trickery and a whole lot of kind of behind the scenes sleight of hand work, make it look like something new.
One of the things we tried really hard to do in Mass Effect is to allow our designers and our artists to be able to create the kind of NPCs that they want to, simply with a few sliders and a few presses of the button. For example, just one slider to control the skin tone. We can tint the color of the bone. Basically, we've got a lot of different things we can do. Along with the materials, we're also able to control all the features of the face. So, for example, we can adjust the height of the eye. We can adjust the width. We can pretty much pick any of the features we've decided to allow customization on, and really we can do quite a bit with it.
Unlike previous games I've worked on, we were really close with the character designers right from the start of the game. When we're creating the rigs for every single creature, they'll typically send us all the concepts, and us being animators and production, and anybody that's going to be involved in bringing the characters to life, which covers a lot of disciplines, and we all have sign off on it. We're all able to say things like, animators will be able to say, if the arm was to lift up there, then the character will break at this point. So we're able to catch all that as they're making the concepts, and then they'll move on to the next stage where they'll actually create a low-res model, and then we can actually stick that in the game and start playing around with it and try and iron out all the flaws with it before they go into doing the high detail meshes. This here is the character. You'll see that we make sure we have the eyes turned on here, and if I was to simply turn the eyes off, you'd see the difference in how much the character looks alive. This is what we typically expect in games.
We always try to build in layers of depth, and so there's always the core story, and then we also have side plots, and part of the interest in the side plot is that you don't have to do it, which usually something that you don't have to do is therefore even more tempting. And with Mass Effect, we kind of took it even further, and then we actually added places on the map that are outside even the plots that you know about. Even if they're side plots, there's still other places for you to go. So again, it kind of adds to what you can do if you want to. But even if you choose not to do the additional side plots or go and explore the extra worlds and asteroids and things that are out there in the galaxy, it actually just makes the main story more interesting, because you know that main story is set inside a larger galaxy. So just the fact that you can go past something and say, no, I'm not going to go there, I am going to stick to the main story. That little choice kind of reinforces the fact that you have freedom in this game. Our strength and our real focus is a great story. And so it's not just the story, of course, it's the delivery mechanism for the story and all the technology that allows you to experience it.
The interactive conversation system, the biggest thing we were trying to go for in this game was taking away that continual pause. And we are achieving, basically we do have like a real-time conversation, and that's really the key, is that it's a real-time conversation that you're inputting into.
Telling a good story in a game goes far beyond the writing. It involves all elements of the package working together. You want the gameplay, you want the graphics, you want the writing. It all has to meld together.
It's all about creating emotional bonds and ties between you as a player and the characters that are in the game. And we've done that through really focusing on every last detail. Like the team has left no stone unturned trying to pursue this, the pinnacle of characters, of making incredibly realistic characters that allow you to feel immersed in a storyline. The storyline is epic as well. Basically it's a path throughout the whole, you get to explore the entire galaxy. So it's a grand tale. You're the tip of the spear of humanity on the galactic stage, and the characters you're interacting with are just as grand in their own right.
Working with Casey and Preston and some of the other leads, we come up with the overall story for Mass Effect. We get an idea of what kind of things we want to focus on, what elements we want in our science fiction IP, and then I would go away and come up with a very broad sort of short version of the story and bring it back, and then we would sort of iterate on that until we came up with something we're all happy with.
You know, we can't talk about Mass Effect, not talk about the digital actors and the conversations. I mean, the digital actors are truly incredible, just really the most lifelike characters we've ever had in a game, and you know, almost anyone else. In that, it's you know, they really seem like they're there, and you're watching them and interacting with them, and it's real personalities. And the way you converse with them, again, we talked about is. It's, you know, different and new. It's this great flowing system where you choose emotions rather than really explicitly saying, you know, reading lines and re-expressing lines.
We want the story and the voice to be as interesting and as interactive as the rest of the game itself. And to do that, we came up with a new interface for you to interact with conversation.
In Mass Effect, you actually talk with the characters you meet. To do that, we didn't want you to just be reading an answer, picking it, and then hearing what you had just read in your mind spoken on screen. That kind of breaks up the flow. It doesn't really draw you in. So we've come up with a new dialogue system that allows you to make sort of emotional and instinctive responses, yet still control the conversation. So what I've got open right now is the conversations for one of your characters in the game. For Ashley Williams, she's one of the people who can join up with you throughout the game. Every time she says something, you get a chance to say something back. Depending on your reaction, it branches to a different part of the conversation. So as you can see, we quickly, as we add more and more options, get quite a mess of dialogue here. There's pages and pages and pages of this stuff.
Eden Prime is one of our oldest and most successful colonies.
The other interesting thing about Mass Effect that we've done that has sort of pushed us to a whole level, the entire game is fully voiceovered. We've done a lot of voiceover games in the past, but we've never actually had the player speak as well.
I won't be moved by sympathy, no matter who you bring into this confrontation.
On the one hand, you're watching a science fiction movie, and you can actually, with half of your brain, sit back and really enjoy a beautiful looking science fiction movie. But at the same time, you know, in an interactive sense, you realize that you're in control of that character the whole time.
Generally, every project tries to push story-based gameplay, which is how do we tell a really good story, you know, in and amongst the gameplay. And for Mass Effect, we're really trying to push the cinematic aspect. We're trying to push real-time conversation.
Our group is responsible for conversations and cutscenes within the game that focus on the story and bringing out the visual context of the story. And what we do with conversations is we begin with an outline of the conversation that has all the dialogue and the VO. And within this dialogue, we work with the writers to get across what the objective of the conversation is, what type of motivations the character have, and basically what we want to get across in the story.
If you go back as far as Baldur's Gate 2, that game had a very book-like narrative to it. However, what we're trying to achieve in Mass Effect is more of a cinematic narrative. So the need for digital acting has sort of increased like exponentially on this project.
That's sort of the directing style that we go for is realism and natural emotion. And I find that those hooks are just, that's how you can really draw the audience in.
The character creation system that we're making on Mass Effect is pushing the boundaries of next generation gaming, because we've never had characters this realistic before. We've never had lip sync and facial animation as sophisticated as what we've got now. And we've never had tried to implement a feature of this complexity across an entire universe of characters. We've got literally thousands of characters that have to have performances better than we've ever had before in a game. As generation and generation of games progresses, what we want to do, and as players become more sophisticated, we want them to see the characters becoming angry, see them becoming nervous. A lot of our games involve trying to intimidate other characters. They need to detect whether or not an NPC is lying to them or getting nervous, stuff like that. And we don't want to write that, we want to show it.
We've really tried to concentrate on a lot of details that essentially will maintain the suspension of disbelief. We always took the attitude that rather than adding stuff to make it more next gen and more cool, we wanted to take away from the gaminess of the game, just keep removing things that people expect from a video game. For example, the biggest thing was actually the simplest thing, just turning on the eyes, making sure that characters never have dead eyes that wall around when they're moving their head. We always make them focused, and that's a really simple thing. And additionally, having animations blend smoothly into one another, making sure that you don't see this animation, then that animation. And these are the type of things that I think when games after Mass Effect come out, the players will expect that kind of standard as well.
I think this game has seen more evolution than the previous games that we've worked on, in the sense that we had a good idea of what the end product would look like. But I think this generation in particular has changed so much in what a video game can look like, and the kinds of visual fidelity you can pull off, the kinds of acting that we can get out of our characters, that one thing we weren't able to envision, just because the technology didn't exist 3 years ago, is how far we would have to take every aspect of the game. And so it's, if you can create a photorealistic character or a photorealistic environment, the animations have to be perfect. And if the animations are perfect, then the transitions between the animations have to be perfect. And the physics and everything has to be all to that same level. Otherwise, it's very easy to point out the thing that's not working very well. And so we literally have at least an order of magnitude more complexity in every system. And that's something that you just can't visualize from 3 years out. So it's seen a lot of evolution.
Overall, we're trying to make products which have global appeal. So when we make our games with great story and character, that's a concept that appeals to almost everybody. If you can convey emotion, if you can make someone believe they're talking to a real person, if you can make them care about the people that are in the game that they're talking to, that's a universal concept. And that's one of the things we're really striving for at BioWare.
Mass Effect is a space opera. It's one of the most powerful pieces of fiction that I've seen in my lifetime.
It's shot like a movie, it feels like a movie.
It's like a lucid dream.
Man, they go into these new planets and they finding different aliens and they shooting them in the ass, bam! I'm on it, man. I like that.
Mass Effect is a grand and epic sci-fi adventure game which kind of plays like 24 in space.
The idea behind it is to try and make a role-playing game for people that helps them live those science fiction moments from classic movies that we all grew up with.
Blade Runner.
Over Star Wars.
Minus Han Solo.
Plus Babylon 5 meets Aliens.
With Sean Cassidy to the 10th power.
Yeah.
You're a character in a distant universe, this aspirational fantasy, allowing you to do things you could never do in real life.
In Mass Effect, you are the hero. You're controlling the action, and what you do can change the outcome.
Ultimately, you decide the fate of the galaxy. It doesn't get any bigger than that.
This game is awesome because you can completely customize your hero. You can be a woman, you can be a man. You can be a bald albino with no eyebrows. You can be a horrifically scarred Asian veteran. You have many choices of character. It's very exciting, and it will affect your choices in the game.
The backstory gives you building blocks in which to build your character up, but the choices and how that character develops throughout this Mass Effect story really depends on you.
As you play Commander Shepard, you basically encounter several people that will join up with your squad throughout the game if you choose to have them.
It's the ultimate role-playing game. It's kind of a combination of everything you've seen in role-playing games, but also in third-person shooters, combined into one.
We wanted to put it on a next-generation console, Xbox 360, and just push everything to the next level.
You literally can just pull out a gun and just run at the enemy with guns blazing, or you can take a more subtle approach.
Let's not do anything we're all going to regret.
You can play it like a chess player. You can play it like, say, a Halo player.
You have biotic powers that you can use where you can influence the physical world using energy attacks, lifting things, sabotaging things with your mind. And then there's, your gun. You can shoot aliens in the face. That's fun.
Look out!
You gotta, you know what I'm saying, be on your toes. Yeah, chicken, and he behind you shooting you in the ass. I'm like, man, I'm supposed to shoot you in the ass. Well, he just shot me in the ass, and my ass is on fire because the thing's like it's hot and it's burning. And the guy, you can tell the guy's hurt, and then you can see a hole in his ass. And I'm like, oh, come on now. I'm joking about the hole in the ass, but.
When you play the game and when you see the universe, you just want more. You want to learn more about it, and it's incredibly immersive.
It feels like a universe that you don't want to leave. It feels like a universe you want to continue to adventure in.
There's a galaxy and planets and side quests and all these different things.
There are so many planets that you can just land on and go explore, even if you're doing nothing related to the main story of the game.
It's just so huge. You're exploring the entire universe, and you're making all the decisions. It's freaking sweet.
Everyone who plays the game will have a different experience because it's not a game, it's a piece of interactive fiction that shapes itself to how you want to play the game.
You, human, you the one they call Shepard?
Is there a problem?
You are actually involved in your character's progression, and your choices shape the ending.
This is an unscheduled arrival. I need your credentials.
All you need to know is I have more credentials than you.
You get to be the actor and the director of your own interactive fiction.
Movies are very stagnant. You cannot yell up at the actor on the screen and say, hey, move over to the left, there's an alien coming.
This is like a brand new way of video gaming and storytelling.
It's different, it's thinking, and it's outthinking you. I think part of the fun of playing those games when we were younger is you didn't have to think that much. It's like throwing a rock through the window. But now the window throws rocks back at you and it hides and turns into things.
There are these interesting moral situations in the game. Issues of sacrifice and torture and all these deep problems where there's not really a right answer.
Is it okay to dispose of one person? Is it okay to dispose of a colony of people? Is it okay to dispose of hundreds of people? Is it okay to commit genocide? These are difficult questions, and the answers are not obvious.
All right, everybody, hang on.
It's not even kind of a standard just choosing good and evil kind of thing.
There's like a gradient of like good and evil.
If you make always the meanest, gruffest, most aggressive choice, that doesn't always get you the result that you ultimately want. That's a positive.
You son of a bitch! I'll make sure everyone in the Alliance sees that. Your career is over.
What we've tried to do is actually say, listen, there really is no good and evil. There's your choices and the impact that they have on the world.
Typically, freedom and choice in a video game is limited to whether or not you want to turn on the system or turn it off.
These games are not mindless anymore.
If you've got something to say, just say it.
Your people are still newcomers, Shepard. The galaxy can be a very dangerous place. Is the Alliance truly ready for this?
Choice is the most important thing. It's about giving the player as much choice as possible across all aspects of gameplay.
Most games are essentially a roller coaster, where you get in, you hang on for dear life. If you play right, you're gonna go up here and down here, and the big falls and the big screams, then you're going back down again, and then it ends. With Mass Effect, it's more of a road trip, where you get in your car, you got your 3 or 4 dumb friends, and you guys are going forward. And wherever you get to is gonna propel you to the next place. And some dumb decisions you make over here are gonna put you in a problem over here. Eventually, you're gonna get where you need to go, but the way it's gonna unfold is like a mystery.
Do you copy? We're under attack!
Incoming transmission from Novaria.
Normandy! Are you there? Repeat, requesting immediate aid! Please!
I think what makes a great video game story is what makes a good movie story, is what makes a good novel. You need great heroes faced with extraordinary circumstance, and they rise to meet that because the faith of others hangs in the balance, and they're not afraid to ultimately sacrifice themselves.
What makes for good science fiction is a healthy blend of head game and old school storytelling.
One of the original goals for Mass Effect was to make a believable science fiction story for grown-ups.
The science fiction is really, really good in this game.
We've built up this whole history of all the different races that you'll meet, all the different alien species that you'll meet. We've built in detailed character backgrounds for everybody you meet in the game. We've built up a whole political system. It's really this sort of attention to detail and the depth that make Mass Effect what it is.
Before we actually set out and did the story, we wanted to create a place where you could tell a lot of stories. That was the most important thing.
What really gets me in this game is the fact that you can explore the universe. It's so Star Trek-y. It's awesome.
In Mass Effect, players get to enter this beautiful universe we've created, and then they get to shape it. You are Commander Shepard. You're an elite military agent with the Systems Alliance. That's humanity's military branch as they sort of go out and explore and expand into space.
Shepard is a classic hero.
You are a Spectre.
Spectres are this sort of galactic agency that is tasked with keeping peace across the galaxy through any means necessary. You know, they're sort of like the James Bonds of the future.
In the game, humanity has just joined the intergalactic community, if you will. It's like we're just joining the Federation in Star Trek.
The humans are the peons. They're the newbies. Nobody really knows what they're capable of. Nobody really likes them.
And the alien races are all kind of judging you to see, you know, do we trust these guys? Are they going to be helpful? Are they going to be dangerous? Do we have to go to war with them?
You can't just ignore a rogue Spectre. I demand action. You don't get to make demands of a council ambassador.
So it's really up to the player to kind of decide what Commander Shepard becomes, because you are the symbol of humanity as a whole.
At its core, Mass Effect is all about man's fear of machines becoming too smart and becoming sentient. And I could not agree more wholeheartedly, because I have a coffee pot that turns off after 30 minutes if I forget to turn it off. And that scares the out of me.
Commander Shepard's kind of like a detective. He's a little bit like Deckard from Blade Runner because he is in pursuit of an evil artificial intelligence.
We are under attack, taking heavy casualties. I repeat, heavy casualties.
You're deciding where you're going to go in the galaxy and what you're going to do to try and expose the rogue Spectre agent that seems to know a little bit more about this stuff than you do.
Saren is like a cat dragon with really long ears, and he's kind of got a pout. I think he's kind of got like really sad lips. He's like Garfield, only gray.
Saren is a Turian. He's an alien species, and he is basically the top Spectre agent in the galaxy.
Saren is a There, I said it.
In the game, he's basically gone rogue. He's turned against everything he believes in. And as you play through the game, you start to find out there's reasons for why he's done this.
Saren is really an anti-hero.
He's not a cardboard cutout, villain that I have to hate. You may disagree fundamentally with what he's trying to do, but you can sympathize with his plight.
If we make ourselves useful, think how many lives can be spared.
He's actually gathered a machine army. The Geth are kind of a ubiquitous enemy in Mass Effect.
Overpowering artificial intelligence that are gonna come and destroy everything and have no soul.
Set the charges, destroy the entire colony. Leave no evidence that we were here.
I think it's going to really shock players when they see what the Geth can do to human beings.
In most games, you find that the vibe is the only good alien is a dead alien. But in Mass Effect, they actually put you in a situation where there's a lot of aliens that may have something to offer you.
You're a bounty hunter. What do you get out of going after Saren?
I'm not in this for the money. I want to be where the action is.
The most powerful moments in the game are those moments where it's not you talking to another human, it's you talking to other races about things in the galaxy and how you see things from different perspectives.
You will excuse me if I don't stand up. I have no time to entertain refugees from that urban blight called Earth.
There's a lot of depth here. There's more than just, a blue alien. They've got this whole history and this whole culture.
If you would speak to him as a fellow soldier, I believe he will listen to you and let the matter be.
The poor bastards that made this game had to go to great lengths to ensure that they made alien races that didn't just differ in terms of how they looked, but they're actually different in the way they are culturally, the way they are with attitude, the way they are with politics and fashion sense.
There's some pretty attractive looking aliens. And I think we're entering an age where people are more open-minded. People are saying traditional sexual roles don't necessarily have to be the way to go. And Mass Effect lets you maybe explore things a little differently because let's be honest, alien chicks are hot.
We've really tried for a very realistic and very hard science fiction kind of view, but we also tried to really convey the softer side of science fiction, the emotional side, the human side.
Sorry to interrupt, Commander. Got a message from Captain Anderson.
You've got all these morality situations where you're asked to make a judgment call.
Too many people died here, Fist. You don't get to walk away.
And so much what happens afterwards is going to be based on those series of judgment calls, much like life.
Maybe you have to choose between one crew member and another, and whoever you choose is going to live, and whoever you don't choose is going to die, and you're going to have to play the next, 10 hours of the game without the presence of that character. And in a game as emotional as Mass Effect is, it's a great loss, and you'll feel it.
We'll see that he receives a proper service once the mission is complete. But I need you to stay focused.
Aye, aye, sir.
You become so invested in the characters that you're running. You actually get emotional. You actually start feeling what your character might be feeling if it was an actual live person.
Not every game lets you interact with everyone on screen. Not every game lets you interact with death.
It gets you so involved on such a deep level in a video game. Can I just nerd for a second? Just walking through the ships, walking through the cities, you're just walking around just like, oh my gosh, just dumbfounded. They're huge. It is an entire world on this little disc.
The technology they use today is just, your jaw hits the ground. It's really a beautiful game.
Building a game like Mass Effect is a major undertaking. You've got hundreds of programmers and artists, you've got millions and millions of dollars, you've got a long history of technologies that you bring in.
We had well over 100 people working on it when we were in full production. It took about 4 years to make. You really have to start by limiting yourself so that you can actually make some progress.
The art were less, for actual science, the writers were quite a bit more, so there was always this combat between the two.
Should we allow time travel? Should we allow instant space travel?
How do we actually go to other planets? Because thanks to Einstein, that jerk, we can't go faster than the speed of light. And the speed of light isn't all that fast. I mean, it's faster than my Toyota, but it's not that fast.
Mass Effect is, as a metaphor, the title, but it's also kind of the slang term in the Mass Effect universe for dark energy.
Dark energy sort of is this mysterious force.
It's actually drawn from real-life science news.
It's an energy that pervades the universe, and it causes the acceleration of the expansion of the universe.
Magnons, protons, electrons, that kind of stuff that you can use to harness to create. What was the question again? I don't feel qualified to answer this.
Gravity acts repulsively on it. So if I had a lump of dark energy here, it would actually start inflating and it would actually create a new universe. That would be very exciting, but I guess the excitement will be somewhat short-lived.
I don't really understand how Mass Effect works, but you can warp space and time and throw people around.
It powers the starships. It really powers all of the cool technology in Mass Effect, and yet it still kind of has a hook into being plausible in real-life science.
The technology they use seems realistic for the setting. It doesn't seem sort of fantastic and oh, now we have a thing that turns monkeys into ice cream.
BioWare has really carved out a niche as, I think, probably the best developer in the world of role-playing games.
Citadel business. We got a Council Spectre aboard.
At BioWare, we've been working on this kind of game for a long time, and it's been an evolution.
We've finally been able to take everything we've learned from our previous games, and we've really kind of pushed that to a whole other level.
It's finally a next-gen game. It's taking that hardware that we've been promised and promised and promised, and really, truly utilizing it.
Mass Effect is a really high-impact system, and each one of the components that we use is really high fidelity.
You've got all this stuff in the game. You have the exploration and the story and the action shooter, and you're modding weapons and you're changing armor, and yet you get inside and play the game, and you don't feel like you're wrestling with any of that. It's just fun.
That's really what the essence of Mass Effect is. You always have something great to do.
You don't taste sugar and egg and water and milk. You taste cake.
One of the things that Mass Effect does really, really well is they make the characters very believable.
They sit there and they turn and they watch you walk, and you don't even have to interact with them. They're reacting to you.
You say something mean to a character and they look back at you with sort of a sullen look. You know, you've done something. That's storytelling. You don't have to have this big, long discussion around it.
You can pull in the camera really tight to take a look at the smallest emotions on the characters' faces.
You don't have to have a lot of words. You can sometimes just have a tilt of a head or a raised eyebrow that really convey as much as hundreds of words can convey in other games.
There's little tells that people give off, little movements of the eyes, little things that they do that actually you have to catch, and that actually gives you a clue into something else. That's pretty amazing.
You can actually tell when a character's lying. You can tell the way they're feeling about you. They can tell when they're nervous, when perhaps they're not happy with the decision that you made as their leader. You're like, I don't even have that much expression in my face.
Virtual acting isn't anything new. You see it all the time in movies now, in movies like Beowulf and Pixar movies. A lot of times, something's kind of off about it, and it's almost like you're watching like an old Godzilla movie where like the guy is talking, but the words don't quite match up.
The technical accomplishment that was most impressive was the head system that we came up with. Meshes for the actual shape of the face, custom animations for each of their facial gestures, dozens and dozens of sliders for things like, what is the distance between the bottom of your nose and the top of your lip.
Everyone seems to create a completely different character. And that's one thing that never ceases to amaze me, is how people all find their own way to play this game.
We've taken some of the great voice acting talent. We have an amazing group of actors that have contributed to this project.
We had really impressive performances from some famous actors like Keith David and Seth Green.
The quality of CGI is so improved these days that, it's amazing. It's amazing.
As long as, these graphics don't replace actors altogether, which has always been the long-term fear, that it could happen.
Nothing that'll spoil a good video game than a shitty actor.
It's an incredible picture of what you can do if you really take your time and build it right.
The great thing about Mass Effect is right from the start, we've envisioned it as a huge trilogy of games.
The jerk that you were in the first one, or the hero that you were in the first one, is the character you're starting with in the second one.
People are going to see that choices they made in the first game will carry through the second game and even all the way into the third game.
It really has taken us all of these many years to build up the amount of technology that it requires.
The 360 really allowed us to build the game we wanted to build this time, with photorealistic environments, photorealistic characters.
The sound, the graphic quality, we pushed it pretty hard.
It's dedicated to that HD TV experience, which gives you really high definition visuals.
It is the game that everybody wants it to be. If games are this hot right now, I'm excited about maybe by the time that I'm 50, you could almost be in something like the holodeck. And you could play this game and get lost in the game and play it for days and days and really feel like you're in the middle of it.
You have been given a great gift, the experience of an entire people. It will take time for your mind to process this information.
I think a lot of people are going to play this game not once, but 3, 4 times, just to see how things would have gone differently.
You can change it every time you play. It's like a brand new game every time.
This is 1,000 games in one game.
I think we've taken all these elements and combined them to really make an experience that is really the pinnacle of interactive storytelling and immersion in gameplay.
I can't wait till people play this game and play through it so I can talk to them about what they did in the game and also what the choices were that they made.
I could see this game sucking up part of my life. So if I don't make any movies for the next couple of years, you'll know why. Lost in space.
I think one of the things we set out to do with Bring Down the Sky to really create that attachment to Mass Effect players was to show them something new and different. This was one of the fundamental goals right at the beginning. There's one track you could take on post-release content, just like you throw out more of the same. Like just whatever. Really, we've never had that philosophy all the way from back on the Neverwinter modules that we used to release on the PC to Bring Down the Sky. We wanted to show them something different types of gameplay they haven't seen, a different character class they haven't seen. And that's what really the fans value. Fans value the ability to expand their view of the Mass Effect universe, and that's what we did with Bring Down the Sky.
we had the exact same team making Bring Down the Sky, or a lot of the same people, and we were starting the planning already before we actually had finished Mass Effect 1. And so the challenge being that a lot of us were doing some task switching back and forth between planning that downloadable content module while we were still finishing up Mass Effect 1. But the real advantage then was that we had people, the writers, the tech designers, the animators, everybody who was on Mass Effect 1 who knew the IP so well, working on the downloadable content so that we could integrate it seamlessly.
Everything in Mass Effect is the universe hangs in the balance, and we wanted to get that kind of bridge story in right after the main game in a way that we really feel like a continuation of Shepard's adventure. So I really hope that we accomplished that.
It was one challenge with Bring Down the Sky, being since it's like a downloadable module that some people will buy, some people won't see. We wanted to make it as integrated in the story as we could in the universe, but we couldn't make it part of the core planets, part of the core story, just kind of mirror off the core story and hint at things that would be coming in Mass Effect 2 and the books and such that. So for like Bring Down the Sky, you happen to be in the right space at the right time and get this new little piece of adventure around Terra Nova that reflects the main plot, has the Batarians that have been mentioned before, hinted at. The Batarians you deal with in Bring Down the Sky are terrorists, and there's a lot of bad blood between the humans and the Batarians. And so, who knows, maybe it comes from, what we have in modern day, always reflect what people understand, what people know.
When we first added the planet, we're trying to look at what elements can we add to it to make it more like a core storyline. And that's when we thought about using the Batarians, the great villains of Mass Effect that had been introduced in the Revelation book. It all started from there. It's like, how do we make them the big villain? And right now, of course, we live in a world where the big villains are the terrorists, right? Like it's no longer the East versus the West and the Cold War. So we wanted to use that to drive how bad these people were, just killing for the sake of killing civilians. I think the setting that we had of being an uncharted world, it needed to be this planet. We used an asteroid in that case. And visually, it creates this great view of the looming planet that you're just about to crash on.
We're kind of playing around with the idea of 4 eyes. Didn't want to go too many. 8 was probably out of question. Our character artists would panic. We had enough time trouble with some of the other stuff we were dealing with on the game. So we drew this up, and basically like this guy here, he had 4 eyes. Kind of the shape of the head is what we wanted. These interesting nostrils, and Matt did a really awesome job on them. We were trying to reuse some of the elements from the original game, and one idea was to take the mining entrance on Therum. I don't know if you remember this, but in the game this had the platform that you kind of walked up to, and then you would go down into the mines. We kind of liked the shape of this, and then just added up these 4 supports that would hold the rocket on, and got a reuse out of that. And it actually turned out really well. And then just by adding the effects, adding the sound, created this really unique piece in the level.
Working on downloadable content is really a great opportunity because it's really like game development 101. In a very short time frame, you have to build the entire content of the game. Building Bring Down the Sky took in total about 8 months from beginning to end. There's a lot of planning at the beginning, so that doesn't, it's not all heavy development time. But planning started before Mass Effect actually had finished and we had actually released it.
So we knew we can kind of add some interesting challenges to the module, and it kind of opened us up to kind of do a little bit more maybe difficult fights, add some new interesting puzzles. So it's kind of a challenge to us as designers to come in and try to come up with some new ideas. We knew that we couldn't have a code patch, so we're still living within the code base of the first Mass Effect, and it was really fun to kind of try to figure out what could we do new. So we came in and tried to make some more interesting Mako combats. We had like turrets with shields that could kind of make it so that you can cheat from long distances and snipe them from far away. Had a little minefield. Tried to soup up the combats a little bit with the Batarians. Try to give them a little bit of flavor, giving them like they had their own war dogs. We try to get some more dialogue that they could be talking in the combats, give them some personality. You'd hear release the Barons, and you'd go like, okay, you're gonna have to deal with some melee creatures coming in on you. That was a lot of fun.
We have a lot of big plans for developing out the Mass Effect universe with tons of ancillary products, and you look at different media, and you look at different types of figurines and toys and books, and the books are a great example of extension of the universe that's really compelling and fun. So the fans will definitely enjoy those if they haven't had a chance to read them yet. They'll fill in the gaps and provide a lot of backstory, and also in the future they'll fill in the cracks between the future installments in the franchise.
I think when you win Game of the Year from someone like the New York Times, it really shows the way that the broader public is looking at your game in terms of an entertainment experience. And that's really what we were trying to do with Mass Effect, is to look at what we're doing with games and think about the way that human beings experience a story, not even just the way that you play a game, but how do you want to be immersed inside a story, and what can we do next? The thing about Mass Effect as a storytelling universe is it is really big enough to create all these opportunities that you might want to explore. Even the Citadel itself, we actually intended it to be a place that's so big and so diverse that you could tell thousands of stories just on the Citadel alone. And then there's so many other planets, there are species with their own backstories. There's something about Mass Effect that goes beyond the fact that it's a game. It's actually a universe that you can kind of think about as something unto itself, and then you can go into it through a video game, you can go into it through a novel. But it's a story that we're telling over time, and there's many different facets to the story. And the novels, one thing I personally really like about the novels is the way Drew Karpyshyn has written the first two novels, and I like the fact that you get the tactile experience. You get a sensory experience that you don't get through an electronic entertainment format. You can find out, the way things smell, and the way people use paper and razor blades still and things like that. Like these kind of moment-to-moment real-life things about what it's like to be in the Mass Effect universe. You read the novels, and then you go back to playing the game or whatever it might be, and you have kind of a greater sensory experience with the universe. Mass Effect Ascension is really cool because it actually explores the idea of the superhuman ability that's in Mass Effect called biotics. And we explored it a little bit in the game on a personal level through Caden, who had some of the early implants that allow human beings to kind of sense and control this fifth physical force in the universe that in real life scientists are exploring as dark energy. And so we kind of brought that into the world of Mass Effect, but we kind of explored it a little bit on a personal level. And in the novel, you get to see an entire school, basically, of kids that are prodigies in being able to use biotics. And one child in particular who is exceptionally powerful and just kind of learning how to develop and control this gift that she has.
When we created Mass Effect, we obviously created a very, very deep and very broad world. We put in a lot of background, a lot of information about things that didn't come out in the game explicitly. And we wanted to explore that. So we thought a good way to explore that and let fans see a lot of this extra material was through the novel Mass Effect Revelation. So we basically set it up as a prequel novel. It talks about Saren, the main villain, and Anderson, one of the characters, the player's mentor basically in the game. And it sort of shows this past relationship that they had. And it details a little bit more about the universe as well. It kind of shows you a little bit of the political stuff, a little bit more about some of the species, and tied in with the game. It's a great way to get the full experience of Mass Effect, to see really how vast and detailed this universe we've created is. Been very careful not to bring too much of the characters into the books. For example, we're not planning on doing a novel about Commander Shepard because that's the player's story. We don't want to tell you our version of your story. You've got your own version of that story through playing the game. What we will do with the novels is introduce new concepts, new locations, new characters. So you'll probably get sort of a sneak peek in the novels. Mass Effect Ascension, the next novel coming out, will go into a little bit more depth about the Quarian race, the Quarian species, and then they will play a bigger role in the second Mass Effect game. You will be introduced to a couple characters that will play very prominent roles in the second Mass Effect game. And hopefully, fans will really appreciate the fact that they get that great story, and then there's so much more that we can tell and explore, not just through other games, but through other medium like books or potential, other avenues.
Mass Effect had a ton of concepts. I mean, I sent Jorg, which was, he was putting it together with Prima, I sent him a giant folder and there was 20,000 images in there. Some were duplicated, but you can imagine how much there was to try and sort through, trying to keep track of the evolution of the character, because you're dumping them in finals. I mean, you had final folder, and then final, really final, yeah, this is the one, and then we changed it again. But really a lot of great artists. I mean, we credited 11 people in here. We had a lot of different staff doing it. Casey ended up writing the whole book. He wrote it in about a week. It was a real tight deadline. I wasn't able to do that because I'm an idiot when it comes to writing. So Casey said, I'll do it. And he wrote it in like a week. He stayed up all night and got it all done and then sent it off to Jorg, and Prima put it all together. And yeah, people were really excited about this. I know we were always asking, when's that book coming? When's that book coming? And everybody was always excited to get their copy.
We've had a lot of interest for developing TV series, movies, things like that. And so we're definitely interested in doing those kinds of things and really broadening out the experience of Mass Effect. I think a lot of people want to see what Mass Effect would look like as a live action experience with actors and sets and things like that. Our goal, of course, is everything that we do, whether it's making a mobile game or a huge Hollywood movie. Ultimately, it's about the quality of the storytelling experience and whether we're really giving people something important in terms of the entertainment value and what they're getting out of the story.
I think post-release downloadable content in Mass Effect is definitely something that's very important to BioWare, and it's true on all of our products. But Mass Effect is just like I said earlier, it's this big toy box. It's like this enormous galaxy with millions of stars and planets to explore, and we can select out the interesting ones and develop them out and continue the storyline as we did with the Batarian race and Bring Down the Sky. So I think from a franchise perspective, it's going to help to fill in the gaps in understanding and continue certain plot lines and develop out certain types of gameplay. And really, we'll try and customize it and build different types of post-release downloadable content to suit different play patterns, suit different types of players. And in the end, it's all about making a great, fun experience for our audience.
Through the first story and things like Bring Down the Sky, we want to make sure that there's always content out there for them to be able to play through, so that it kind of leads into Mass Effect 2. And in particular, we kind of have some exciting things that we want to do in terms of the story and how the story through downloadable content is going to set up the sequel.
Things we're working on right now for the Mass Effect universe next is we had something in Mass Effect 1 that again we weren't able to pull off just because we didn't have the time and we didn't think we'd be able to do it well enough, which was a fight club or an arena. So we're actually working on that for our next downloadable content piece, and we're hoping it'll be really special.
So we wanted to be able to give people a much more combat-oriented, a little bit lighter story kind of experience. You're going to go to kind of a casino, gaming, fight club, space station. Any save game that you make from Mass Effect 1, you should be able to carry that same character into Mass Effect 2. So if you do the fight club and you make your save, you finish Mass Effect 1, you'll be able to take that save game and create a character so that you can continue that experience into Mass Effect 2. So in the second game, you're actually going to go through a darker period where you're really looking for answers. It's a lot harder to find what the realities are, and there are a lot of twists and turns, and it's generally a much darker experience.
Well, I think what we want to do with Mass Effect is look at universal themes, themes that apply to somebody, in the future, in the past, in our present, contemporary themes. So, as we've explored in Mass Effect 1, we had things like, love, loss, consequences, choice. Does the end justify their means? Morality in a general sense like that. We're obviously going to continue with those kinds of themes. We are going to continue to push forward on other themes like, technology. What does it mean to be alive? How does synthetic life or artificial intelligence compare to true life or organic life? How do you cross those boundaries? Can you cross those boundaries? Should we cross those boundaries? We really want to sort of push into that direction. Things that you know, people are already starting to think about and imagine in our world, and we just want to take those kernels of exploration and push them forward, extrapolate them into our vision of what may come down the road. We've been very conscious of the ability of players to make choices, and we understand that if those choices don't have consequences that carry on through the trilogy, there was no point in making them. Now, that obviously has painted us into a difficult position because we have multiple threads, multiple endings, certain characters may or may not be alive. It's created extra work for us, but we felt it was necessary to really capture what we were going for with Mass Effect. So the short answer of how we're going to deal with all those decisions in Mass Effect 2 and going forward is that we're creating alternate versions of all sorts of scenarios. We're almost creating, you know, I hate to say 2 full games, but we are definitely creating more content than what a person will see on one playthrough. If you play through the game with a save game from the first Mass Effect, and then you make another save game where you had made different choices and play through again, or you talk to a friend who's played and they had made different choices in Mass Effect 1, there will be significant differences that you'll just say, wow, how did that happen? You know, that guy was dead in my game, and they'll say, well, no, he's not dead in my game, and boy, he sure had an impact.
You're going to see Captain Anderson again. You're going to see Udina again. A lot of the main characters that were a big part of the story in Mass Effect 1. And that's a lot of the fun of an ongoing story, is that these characters, it's a character story. So you'll see these characters throughout the trilogy as long as they don't die because of you.